July 19th, 2016. Had a lot of questions about the earthquake that we saw last week off of Florida, guys. It's an unusual area, and I think it was a 3.7. We had one back around June 10th, about the same size, near the same area. Again, there's no known fault zones in that area, but what did happen was it was because of a Navy test. They say the littoral combat ship USS Jackson, a new U.S. Navy vessel, completed the first of 3 scheduled full ship shock trials on June 10th. A similar test on Saturday led to reports that an earthquake had occurred in waters off Daytona Beach. The shock trials are designed to demonstrate a ship's ability to withstand the effects of nearby underwater explosions and retain required capability. Now, if you remember Saturday, the USGS reported a 3.7 magnitude around 4 p.m. at 168 nautical miles northeast of Daytona Beach. Now, again, it was classified as a Florida quake, but that's a long ways offshore, guys. The Navy had notified the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Marine Fisheries Service that another shock trial was going to be conducted between July 16th and July 20th, depending on the weather. Now, Dale Ing is a public information officer for the Navy Sea System Command in Washington. He said the Navy is working on a statement it expects to release this week. This, again, about the earthquake. The report goes on to say that sound travels particularly well in a layer of ocean water known as the SOFAR channel, SOFAR, short for Sound Fixing and Ranging Channel. He said, adding that it lets sound waves travel a long way away, a lot further than you would expect. Because the shock trials happen underwater, the SOFAR channel would be a very good amplifier, producing the strong signals seen along the coast on Saturday. They're saying that even at the seafloor, that would put enough energy to create that earthquake. In order for the Navy to do this, guys, they have to get a permit from the Fisheries Service for Navy maneuvers. And they get it. They started getting them for this particular area 2013, and their permits go to 2018. But they conduct shock trials on the vessels east of Jacksonville. These could include a 10,000-pound charge and a 40,000-pound charge. So we may see more quakes in that area. The USS Jackson was commissioned last December and one of the Navy's new Independence-class littoral combat ships. It will conduct anti-submarine, surface, and mine countermeasure operations around the globe. It says they are designed to defeat threats in coastal waters where increasingly capable submarines, mines, and swarming small craft operate. Now, the people that make the USS Jackson is Austell, and I know they have a one company or one big shop there in Mobile. I'm not sure if that's where the USS Jackson came out of, guys. Some of you guys in Mobile may know that. But they said 2 shock trials had taken place. That's one we're talking about. And one other is scheduled. The company warned its investors that additional modifications were determined necessary after the initial shock trials, requiring a downward adjustment to the company's planned revenue. In other words, they must have found a few problems, and it's going to cost them more money to get these fixed. So once they get the trials done, that the USS Jackson will join sister ships in San Diego, California. The Navy, according to the permit, is required to have at least 10 marine mammal observers on board aircraft or multiple vessels during the exercise. The Marine Mammal Stranding Network along the southeast coast has been advised to be on the lookout for any unusual marine mammal strandings. Guys, you know an explosion like that has to do a good bit of damage. And guys, you can see if you go to the USGS and you set the settings for 7 days, worldwide magnitude 2.5 plus, you'll see it's 217 earthquakes are in this map area. Now, if you'll notice, off Florida, they had changed that quake signature to a diamond instead of that circle. And that's 3.7 experimental explosion. You see that 160 kilometers east-northeast of Daytona Beach. Also in the Appalachian chain, 3.5 of 3.4 was a mine collapse. That's 11 kilometers northwest of Richland, Virginia. Don't have much information on that, guys. If you have anything on that, come on the comments and let us know from any of you in that area. Now, what we've seen to date, and I'm going to change the settings again, and this is today, one day, all magnitudes worldwide. What we've seen are two strong quakes here in the Andes Mountains and just south of Mexico City. I think what has happened there to get those two quakes on that section of the Ring of Fire usually takes some pressure. You see other quakes around the world, 5.0, 5.1 Indonesia, and the 5.0 northeast of the island Fiji, in that area. But these two right here, and you see the newer ones popping up along the San Andreas, were caused, I think, by a solar burst. I'll show you what I'm talking about. As usual, if you see these type of double quakes along that eastern side of the Ring of Fire, always come and look at the electron and the proton monitors aboard the ACE satellite. It's an early warning system for us here on the planet. And you can see a spike right there. That is in electrons, and it's from the electron proton alpha monitor. If you switch to both, you can see that you also had low energy protons. And this gap right here in information was caused when a filament released from the top right corner of the sun. I'll show you that. Wasn't that powerful, but we're in a solar minimum. Our shields are weaker, and so these impacts will become more obvious because of that factor. In other words, it doesn't take as much activity from the sun to create stress on our tectonic plates. Now, switching satellites to the Solar Dynamics Observatory, which is also, it gives you an Earth-facing perspective. In the top right corner, you can see that flare, and I think that was the explosion that was felt. Even though it was not a directly Earth-facing burst, it's strong enough to where the ACE satellite will pick up that energy as it expands from the sun outward and through, especially the inner solar system. But that loop that you see in that top right corner, guys, several of our Earths could slide through just the opening in that loop. But you notice in the center, those two sunspots continue to grow. We'll take a look at it from a different camera. Now, these two sunspots that we've been watching are almost the same size now. Check that out. We'll look at one other image, but you can see with the blue section here behind it, that makes it magnetically configured to where you have that chance for solar flares. We'll take a look at NOAA's space weather prediction on this, but check that out, guys. Snake eyes right there. And this is a good perspective, just changing cameras on the same satellite. Gives you an idea of the size of those sunspots. We've seen them larger than that, but those are two. They're very close together. You've got a magnetic configuration that's different from one another. Let's take a look at that. Space Weather is also watching this, and they're saying this big sunspot, AR 2567, is regaining its magnetic complexity. And this has prompted NOAA forecasters to boost the odds of an M-class solar flare today to 25%. If such a flare does occur, it will be geo-effective because the sunspot is directly facing Earth, and that's what geo-effective means. And this is their sunspot listing. This is put together by the Space Weather Prediction Center and the U.S. Air Force. But 2567 is beta gamma, and that's what they're talking about, magnetically complex. Now, when you get it close to a sunspot like 2568, that is alpha, you actually, with those large magnetic connections, you get into a triple configuration pretty quick. But we're watching it, and we've seen these sunspots do this before, come across the surface, and as they reach the edge, start throwing out flares. It's just pulling out of that. But you have, not only is it Earth-facing, guys, but the Earth and the sun has what's called, and you've seen it in my videos before, a magnetic connectivity point. And that shifts around, but on this right side of the sun, as you see the sunspots move to the right, that is this location where the Earth is connected to the sun. These large magnetic connections full of plasma. The satellites have shown it before, And they actually have a magnetic connection watch system set up. And if you look at this chart, what they've got is at the current time is you've got 4 planets that are showing up: Earth, Mars, Mercury, and Venus. And they're indicated, if you look in the bottom right, by the colored circles. In other words, Venus is the magnetic connectivity point between Venus and the sun is in this area. Guys, you get and think about this. This is one of the ways that we get energy from the sun. Not only that, it's part of the balance of the inner solar system. In the far left corner, because Mercury is on this side of the sun, you see that gray circle. Then Mars here in the brown, and Earth is right there, and that's just because of the alignment. And here's your sunspots. So as they move over this area, I've always seen increased activity just because of those magnetic connection points. Now, these are not traveling right across the exact point, but I've seen it affect them before. So we'll watch it in the next 2 days and see if this thing starts flaring off. We haven't seen many this year. The sun's been very quiet because of the solar minimum. But we're watching this, guys. It's a heads up. Be safe.